The Bahamas is experiencing our 52nd year of independence. Our Independence Day actually is coming up in a couple of days. And, this thought of independence, I wanted to take the time to celebrate, first of all, our Bahamian independence, being independent for 52 years, and what we have been able to do over the years as a nation. Per capita, the Bahamas has been able to accomplish a lot compared to other countries that are much larger than us, even first world countries, right? At some point, all as individuals, we seek different aspects or different levels of independence. And I wanted to talk about what independence truly means. Freedom doesn't end when independence begins. It's actually where the work on the freed start, right? Deliverance versus freedom, like when you compare the two, deliverance happens immediately, right? You are immediately delivered, but freedom is a process. All right, welcome to the new episode of the Miles Hype Podcast. This is Miles Jr. I'm your host. And as always, the vision of this podcast is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist. Always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right? So for starters, want to just once again promote our upcoming Explore Africa tour. That's happening November 20th to December 1st. We'll be visiting the country of South Africa, the cities of Cape Town and Johannesburg. If you want to find out information about our tour this year, go to our website, exploreafricatour.com. You'll find all the information on this year's tour there. All right, I'm encouraging everyone to come. It's going to be a great time. It's a kid-friendly tour. I'm excited to be going this year, and I want to encourage you to come. It's going to be an experience like none other. And if you haven't been or have been thinking about going to Africa, a country in Africa, or going back to the motherland, this would be the year that I encourage you to go, and I'm encouraging you to join us on tour this year. All right. Okay, so today I wanted to, the Bahamas is experiencing our 52nd year of independence. Our Independence Day actually is coming up in a couple of days. It's going to be July 10th. The United States actually just had their Independence Day this past week, July 4th. And, this thought of independence, I wanted to take the time to celebrate, first of all, our Bahamian independence, being independent for 52 years. Very young country, but, very impactful country, especially in our specific region, and what we have been able to do over the years as a nation. Per capita, the Bahamas has been able to accomplish a lot compared to other countries that are much larger than us, even first world countries, right? And just on a global scale, what we have been able to do from our success in sports, our success in business, our success in the industry of tourism, and what we do per capita here in this country. I think it says a lot about what our forefathers had envisioned for us, right? But I think we still have a long way to go as a nation. I think there's a lot that we can still do, a lot that we still need to do, and just passing on the right qualities to the future generations of our nation. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today, right? In celebration of independence, the Bahamas' independence in particular. But this is a general conversation, a general discussion that can apply and relate to everyone, regardless of where you're from. I'm sure all of us have become independent or are seeking independence in some aspects of our lives, right? Whether it's the country that you live in or yourself as an individual. Independence is sort of a global thing, right? And at some point, we all as individuals, we seek different aspects or different levels of independence. And I wanted to talk about what independence truly means, right? So freedom is not about just being delivered from something, right? It's being or having a sense of responsibility, having self-discipline, and having a vision, a long-term vision at that for whatever it is the freedom is being taken from, right? Like I said, July 10th is the day that the country that I'm from, the Bahamas, we celebrate our independence. But freedom doesn't end with independence, right? As a matter of fact, freedom starts. That's where the work starts, right? You become free, and this sense of freedom in the term that, or in the way that we use it, I think it points back to the story of like the Israelites back in the Bible, right? Because freedom doesn't end when independence begins. It's actually where the work on the freed start, right? Deliverance versus freedom, like when you compare the two, deliverance happens immediately, right? You are immediately delivered, but freedom is a process, right? So if you think about the Israelites back when they were delivered from Egypt, right, or freed from Egypt, when Moses, God instructed Moses to go and deliver his people, and Moses went through, this back and forth with Pharaoh, trying to negotiate the freedom of the Israelites, right? When they eventually got free, and they went into the desert, they were free. They were physically free, right? They were delivered from their oppressors, but their minds were still stuck in slavery, right? The freedom of their body, the freedom of their physical being happened instantly, but the mentality, right? The mindset that we have, or that we had, as a captive culture, as a captive people, that takes time to be freed or to be delivered, right? So the question we have to ask ourselves is, have we truly shifted from a dependency mindset? Freedom demands a few things, right? And so when we ask for freedom, or when we demand freedom, right, or when we fight for freedom, or when we choose to be free from something, right, that freedom comes at a cost, right? And that cost has to do with being more responsible in what we take on. Again, being self-disciplined, really creating a vision for what it is that we want to do, or what we want to see ourselves accomplishing, or our nations accomplishing, whatever that freedom is being tied to. That long-term vision, like what it involves. And then there has to be a set of standards, right? A set of laws, or like order that we put in place, that we use as our moral compass, right? Freedom is not doing what you want, but it's managing what you've been given, right? So I could remember when I was young, and younger, and graduated high school. Sorry, not high school. High school. Graduated from college. Right. I had graduated with my master's degree. I had then moved back home, and I was working with my dad. And it came to a point where I was like, man, I'm ready to move out of the house. Right. So, I was living with my parents at the time. Like no bills. Right. Just kind of saving and stacking funds. But it got to a point where, I guess it's most men, I can't say all men, but most men get to a point where they want their level of freedom, right? They want to set their own rules, make their own decisions, take care of their own responsibilities. And I went to my parents like, I think I want to move out. So I went through the process of finding a spot that I wanted to live in. And decided, told my parents about it. They came and saw the spot. They also, liked the spot. Got it at a great, a great investment. at least, yeah, it was a great investment, still a great investment to this day. And eventually I moved out. And going through the process of purchasing this spot, I started to realize that, man, I don't have enough money. I don't have enough money saved. This freedom I'm looking for comes at a hefty cost, right? So, because I went through, I got a mortgage for my spot. So I was, just looking at the price and just thinking of, yeah, I could come up with this down payment or whatever. Okay, great. But I forgot the closing costs. I forgot the taxes. I didn't consider, the total amount of the cost. I had to go back to my pops and it's like, yo, so remember that conversation you had about me moving out? So I ran into a snag, right? So I just, wanted to know if there's a way that you could help me out. So my dad, we had a conversation, and he was like, "Sure, I'll help you out." He assisted me with the what was needed for me to, make my down payments and closing costs and stuff like that. But he was like, "Yo, you moving out, so you're gonna have to take some responsibility for all of the other expenses that come along with." You being in your own place, right? That's utilities, that's, purchasing your own foods, taking care of your own laundry, and, all these different things that we had a conversation about. It was him saying, if you want independence, then you're going to have to be a lot more responsible with what it is that you are seeking, right? Because, just being, just leaving my parents' home, it wasn't just going to be moving out and just kind of living the same way and like going to the house and being like, yo, I need some food, or I need wash some clothes, or yo, okay, y'all hit me with a couple of dollars. I'll go do something this weekend, right? Nah, that came with, all right, you want to move out, then you got to take some responsibility for yourself. So, I gained a great perspective on what independence like really meant from at that point in my life, and I started to just to be a lot more accountable with the way that I did things, how I planned my budgeting, my expenses, all of those things that come along with kind of living on your own. And my parents weren't, they were always open and still open to assisting me at the time with whatever I needed assistance with. But I think me just being the type of person that I am, like I wanted to put that on me, right? Put the accountability on me to not have to go back or ever go to my parents for assistance or handles, right? Just prioritize what needs to be prioritized and handle what needs to be handled, and become responsible for the things that I wanted to do. I want to introduce you to the Monroe Global app, the ultimate platform to empower your leadership journey and inspire your purpose-filled life. Access timeless teachings designed to help you grow in every area of your life. From leadership development to personal growth, Monroe Global has it all at your fingertips. With the Monroe Global app, you'll have exclusive access to powerful videos and messages from the legendary Dr. Miles Monroe, a digital library packed with life-changing content right at your fingertips, and a vibrant global community of visionaries, leaders, and change makers just like you. Whether you're at home, on the go, or in the office, the Monroe Global app ensures you never miss an opportunity to learn, grow, and lead. Available now on Google Play and the Apple App Store, the Monroe Global app is your gateway to unlocking your potential and impacting your world. Download the Monroe Global app today and take the first steps toward living the life you were born to lead. It says a lot about the mindset that we need to have when it comes to independence, right? Because we talk about celebrating independence, but what does that really mean, right? Do we have a nation of independent thinkers, right? Are the leaders within this nation, or even the citizens of our country, right? Do we think with an independent mindset? And I think these past 52 years, we may have been physically, right, independent, physically freed from being colonized under the British Empire. But I don't think we've been like truly free from a mental standpoint. And, I think naturally it takes time to process, from a mental standpoint, what freedom is and what freedom entails, right? If you again go back to the Israelites, they, even though they were oppressed and they were enslaved, they still had less to think about, right? If you look at it that way, they knew where they were going to sleep, they knew when they were going to eat, what they were going to eat, and like there was just certain things that were put in place for them, even though it might have been not an ideal situation. And sometimes as us as in humans, right, we get used to the situations that we're in, even if they are not great, right? We just say, hey, yeah, that's not the best situation, but I have clothes on my back, I got food on my table, I got a shelter I can live in, even though it may not be exactly what I want, where I want to live, what I want to eat, what I want to wear, it's still being provided. And when you're free, that responsibility becomes your responsibility. Like you have to figure out how you're going to live, where you're going to live, how you're going to, clothe yourself, how you're going to eat, where you're going to get the food from, who's going to cook it, when, and it's all of these added responsibilities that we have as an independent individual, right, or independent nation. Like we got to start taking care of ourselves. So as the Israelites went to the desert, they started to complain, and they went as far as to say, man, you took us out of, speaking to Moses, in referencing God, like you guys took us out of slavery, brought us into this desert to die because we don't have anything to eat, you ain't got nothing to drink, and instead of like just understanding or being appreciative of, man, we are no longer enslaved, their mindset was, man, I much rather slavery, I much rather be enslaved and live through, the conditions that we were in during the slavery, like maybe being whipped, having to, do hours and hours of manual labor. Even though I may not have liked that, I was okay with just knowing that I didn't have anything to worry about. I didn't have to, work for myself or take on more responsibilities than I wanted. But out in this desert, like we have to fend for ourselves. We have to protect ourselves. We have to protect, those that we love around us. When before, the protection was just there, right? Because we were enclosed in, this, whatever it was, a jail, a building, wherever their slavery camps were situated. There were a lot of things that, you don't consider when you're dependent, right? But then when you become independent, you start to realize, man, there's a lot more to independency than you may think. So the question again is, do we take ownership of our freedoms, right? Do we take ownership of our families, of our communities, of the economy that we want to live in, and we want it to thrive? Are we doing what it is that we need to do as individuals within this nation or in any nation to truly understand and reflect what independence is supposed to be? My dad wrote a book called The Burden of Freedom, and it was one of his earlier books. It may have been one of the first ones, first or second books that he wrote. And if you haven't read that book, again, it's called The Burden of Freedom. If you've never read that book or heard about that book, I would encourage everyone to read that book because that book really talks about freedom, and it talks about, like, he calls it the burden of freedom, right? And the word burden there represents more of a responsibility, right? Like everyone wants to be free or say they want to be free, but there's a responsibility that comes with it, and that responsibility can become a burden if it's not approached the right way. So just think of it as, as I tell my friends, some of my friends all the time, like, we compare our professional careers, right? Some of my friends work in large corporations, and these corporations, they do well in these corporations, but these corporations have structure, right? You have a title, you have a set of objectives to do within your job, a role that you play, and you're given these things that you need to do or accomplish or achieve over whatever the timeline is, maybe a week, maybe a month, maybe a quarter, maybe every 6 months, maybe a year, maybe a couple of years. But there's structure to it. And you have persons who are employees, regardless of the level of employee that you're at, and they complain about being an employee, right? Man, I feel like this is slave labor. I don't have any freedom. I have to, I'm stuck in, you know, doing what my job or my bosses demand of me to do. So they just feel away, feel some type of way. And we live in this world now where, man, we're able to be our own bosses in a sense, right? Where we can start businesses for ourselves and we can branch off into doing our own things. But a lot of that independency from our jobs comes with taking on the responsibility of being the owner, right? And a lot of the times, I tell my friends, man, I envy you guys, right? Because of the structure that you have, there's a lot less you have to think about, right? But as a business owner or as an entrepreneur, like everything starts with us, right? The vision of the organization, the creativity, the marketing, the strategy, the plan, the execution, like it all starts from us as being the head of whatever that organization is. But as employees, like you don't think of that. You only think of the portion that you're literally responsible for. But as an owner, you're responsible for the entire thing. So, a lot of people think, man, I want to leave my job. I want to not be an employee anymore because I want to free up my time. And if I own my own business or do my own thing, I'll have a lot more time on my hands to myself or to do what it is that I want to do. When in actuality, a lot more of your time is used up with the business that it is that you're running. And that's why, like, a lot of the times people go from, working as an employee to being self-employed, and then they're back to be an employee because of let's call it the burden of being an employer, right? You have to worry about, again, the vision, the strategies, the marketing, the deployment and execution of said strategies and vision. And then if you have staff, you have to worry about a whole lot of other, let's call it expenses, right? You have to pay salaries, you got to do benefits, insurance, all these other expenses that come along with being an owner. And again, we don't think of all of this. Do you feel like there's more to life than what you're experiencing? That deep down, you're meant for something greater? It's time to stop wondering and start discovering. At the Monroe Institute of Leadership, we believe every person carries a unique purpose, a calling designed specifically for you. Our transformative courses, Discover Purpose and Unlock Your Potential, are crafted to help you uncover that purpose and equip you with the tools to step confidently into your destiny. These powerful courses are for leaders, entrepreneurs, students, and visionaries like you. Through proven principles and actionable insights, you will clarify your vision and set bold goals. You will identify your strengths and passions. You will overcome the barriers holding you back, and you will step boldly into your God-given potential. Our expert facilitators draw from timeless and tested principles, blending practical strategies with kingdom truths to empower you to lead a life of purpose, impact, and transformation. The world needs what you have to offer. Don't let another day pass without unlocking the greatness within you. Visit our website, themill.org, and register today. The Monroe Institute of Leadership. Renew your mind and transform a generation. So again, in being an independent nation, there were a lot of things that we didn't have to worry about when we were under the British rule, right? Whether we lived in good conditions or not so good conditions, there still was a lot that the kingdom that we were under provided for us, right? And now becoming an independent nation, we have to fend for ourselves in a lot of ways, right? And we have to develop our own laws, develop our own systems, processes, and all of these things. And, being 52 years young as a nation, some things we have done well with and some things we still need to work on, right? So, do we act as if we are free, or are we just delivered, right? Have we just been delivered from being ruled under the British Empire that we were under, or the oppressors, as we sometimes say, or do we are we like literally mentally free, or are we just waiting to be led by someone? National freedom starts with the individual, and the responsibility that each of us take on. Again, when I moved out of my parents' home and moved and started to live on my own, there were a lot of responsibilities I took on myself. I knew that I just knew that I didn't want to have to depend on my parents when I said that I wanted to be independent. Now, were my parents still open to assisting me and helping me? Absolutely, right? And that's the kind of world, if you will, that I want to build for my kids as well. I know there's going to come a point when my kids be telling me that they are ready to become a bit more independent and they want to move out and take care of themselves. And I'm going to give them that same speech, that same talk my dad gave me. Hey, you want to be independent? All right, then you have to take a lot more responsibility on, right? Focus on the things that you need to focus on in order to take care of the things that you're responsible for now. But as always, it's a learning process, right? Like I said, deliverance is immediate, but freedom is a process, right? So like really understanding and conceptualizing what freedom entails and the responsibility, the type of responsibility that it takes time. And that's what I'm definitely going to be patient with my kids, because that's what my dad was patient with me. Even though I, really was adamant about trying to be very responsible, there were times where I may have needed assistance and whatnot. And as a nation, right, there's nothing wrong with, looking at the government for support and help. But at some point, like, we have to take on our own individual responsibilities, right, and do our part in this life of freedom that we're able to live, or that we want to live. And again, national freedom starts with the individual's responsibility. And I think if we as a nation, as individuals within a nation, as citizens within a nation, use that mindset of, all right, we've been delivered, right? Now we understand that freedom is a process. We are 52 years removed from our day of independence. And now it's time for us to be our own thinkers, right? Like, I think we really need to start developing long-term vision. I think that's where it starts, right? Like really understanding, man, what it is that we want to do as a country, what it is that we want our citizens to do. And then as a citizen, it's what is it that I can do to not only better myself, but provide stability and an injection in our economy that could stabilize and sustain this country that I live in. So as we celebrate our independence, and all of you that are celebrating independence, around the world, or if you're just celebrating your independency from, your parents if you're young, or your kids if you're parents now and you don't have any more dependence, so now you take on maybe a bit less responsibility, but your responsibilities shift, right? Just really understanding what that entails, and I want to implore us to, when we talk about being free, when we talk about being independent, understand that there's a responsibility that comes along with that. There's a level of accountability that we need to have, a level of self-governance, self-discipline. We need to, again, instill a vision, and that usually needs to be a long-term vision that we work towards. And then we have a set of standards that we put in place, right? Where we create order and law within not only ourselves as individuals, but in our families, in our communities, and in our greater nations. So, just wanted to just kind of highlight, that yes, we're great and happy to celebrate our independence. But again, just reminding us that this independence that we celebrate, this independence that we love, regardless of where it is or where we experience it in our lives, it comes with a huge level of responsibility. And then that responsibility is on us to not just be free in mind, and I mean be free in our bodies and our physical, but also be free in our minds, right? And think in a way where we want to affect that same mindset shift in future generations. All right. So that's what I want to talk about again. Happy Independence, Bahamas, as we go through this week. Happy Independence to all of the other countries who, whether you've experienced independence already for this year or your Independence Day is coming up. Just think on these things, man. Think on the responsibility that comes with freedom. All right. So with that, brings us to the point where I want to leave with you a milestone. And the milestone today is freedom is the right to be responsible and disciplined. You know, a lot of us, we fight sometimes for freedom, whether that's, societal freedom, personal freedom, spiritual freedom. But know that that freedom comes with responsibility, and it comes with us requiring a level of discipline that we need to not only show, right, but internalize, and just make ourselves the individuals that when we get this freedom, right, we don't lose it all, right? We don't implode because we don't have the right mindset for it. Okay, so freedom is the right to be responsible and disciplined. So if we want to be free, just know that it comes at a cost, right? And it comes at a sacrifice that we need to have as individuals who are seeking the freedom or independence that we would like to get. All right. So hopefully that was an encouragement to you. Essentially, that's what I want to continue to do. Freedom is responsibility. Responsibility is freedom. And this is what I think independence really means, right? It's great that we want to seek our independence, but just know that independence comes with a level of responsibility that we as individuals have to take on for ourselves. All right. So that's my encouragement to you. As always, the vision and goal of this podcast is to entertain, educate, and elevate you miles high above your fears, your doubts, and any limitations that you may think exist. Always knowing that those limitations only exist in your mind. All right. Until next time, you guys stay blessed.